Hello and welcome to Valerie and Valise, the YouTube channel that is designed to help you get all of the information you need to visit Alaska, as well as other destinations in the American West. If you are not familiar, I actually grew up in Alaska and I visit pretty regularly. And I decided to team up with some of the partners that I have developed relationships with in Alaska to put together a seminar series for those of you who are visiting Alaska in 2023. So if you are watching this video live or watching the replay, there is a number of videos with different Alaska destinations that are all focused on giving you the information you need to plan your trip, as well as what you specifically need to know if you're visiting in 2023. Did something like this back in 2021, and the guest that I have today, who's representing Skagway, she was here last time, and it's really exciting to be reconnecting with folks couple years later to hear what's new and to just make sure that you get the most accurate and up-to-date information to plan your Alaska trip this year. And hopefully we'll be doing this in years to come. I'd like to make a little habit of doing this so that every year you can get the information you need right here on YouTube. Without further ado, then, I will introduce Wendy Anderson, who is here on behalf of, is it Visit Skagway? Explore Skagway?
It's Explore Skagway. We recently went through a rebranding, and so now we are officially Explore Skagway, part of the Municipality of Skagway's Visitor Department.
Perfect. Yeah. So Wendy's here on behalf of Explore Skagway, and she is going to show you everything you can do to explore Skagway, whether you're there for a short time, perhaps as part of an Alaska cruise, or you've taken a little bit of extra time either coming by the ferry or by car or RV across from the Canadian border. And yeah, we're just going to dive right in and give you everything you need to know. So welcome, Wendy. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Valerie. Yeah, thanks for putting together this series of Alaska chats. You know, January is just a perfect time to do a bit of travel dreaming and planning. So this makes it a lot of fun to explore the options available in the great land of Alaska. So yeah, thanks to you, Valerie. And as Valerie mentioned, I'm Wendy Anderson. I work at Explore Skagway. We are a municipal department, which makes us a little different than a lot of the destination marketing organizations in other locations. But we are just the same in them in that we are here to help you find your best way to explore our destination of Skagway. So let's jump into it. And Valerie, could we have the first slide, please? So I wanted to share a little bit about us. Skagway is located in Southeast Alaska at the top of the longest and deepest fjord in North America. What you're seeing in the photo there is from the top of AB Mountain on one of our many great hiking trails in the area. It overlooks the town and the Taya Inlet there. I am celebrating my 30th anniversary of arriving in Skagway this spring. And when I first came up here, it was a view like that that I saw before I arrived that convinced me to come here. It's just a beautiful surrounding area. And it is also the traditional land of the Tlingit people. The other photo there is of Bo Dentist. He is a local artist, and this was at a dedication of his artwork on one of our public buildings last summer. That beautiful double eagle behind him was installed in one of our local parks. Could we have the next slide, Valerie? So Skagway came into the world view in the late 1800s when gold was discovered up in the Yukon Territory in Canada. It was actually discovered about 800 miles away from where we're located, but thousands upon thousands of stampeders came through Skagway and the neighboring valley of Dyea to go hunt riches up in the Yukon. And they were trying to strike it rich. And today we have one of the leftovers, or one of the wonderful things we got from that gold rush is the Klondike Gold Rush National Historical Park. One of their units is located in Skagway, and their mission is to preserve and share that gold rush history. If you can go to the next slide. So I work at the visitor center, as I mentioned, and people always ask, what's the one thing I should do when I'm in Skagway? And my answer is always, go see the park movie. The park offers a whole bunch of different programs, and one of the things that they have is this nice little 20-minute video that talks about some of our gold rush history and why our town is this very unique looking place within Alaska. whether you end up taking a tour or just wandering through our historic district, it really enriches your experience when you're visiting Skagway to have that bit of background. So just go see the movie. They also have ranger talks throughout the day. They offer a junior ranger program where you can take your kids into their visitor center and they get a little booklet. And then the kids go kind of on a scavenger hunt through town and do a bunch of things so that they're learning about the town. And they can earn their own little junior ranger badge that they can take home with them. And then the park has tons of museums. They've got their Gold Rush Museum that talks about that specific event. They have Jeff Smith's Parlor Museum that kind of showcases some of our history right here in Skagway and some of the notorious goings on that happened during the gold rush. And then there's the Moore Homestead, which is the home of the first family known to have settled in the Skagway area. All of their offerings are free, so they're just really great opportunities for people to take advantage of as they're in Skagway. One of the other things that the Park Service has in their management is the Chilkoot Trail. The Chilkoot Trail was a traditional Tlingit trading route where the Tlingit people would go from the Southeast Alaska up into the Yukon to trade. And once the gold rush occurred, of course, those thousands of stampeders went up and down the trails. And as they went along, they would throw out, that extra frying pan or that pair of boots. And so some of those items are actually still along the trail today, which makes the Chilkoot Trail the longest outdoor museum in the world. It was also recently designated a National Historic Trail. And today people can enjoy that for day hikes. You can do hike and float tours to just be able to have a little snippet of enjoyment with the Chilkoot Trail and have that historic hiking experience. The trail also is open for multi-day hikes that you reserve your camping spots and then you can hike that journey as a multi-day experience. I think this year it's not going to be opening probably until August, so that's something to be aware of. But it does make for a wonderful just multi-day outdoor experience. In fact, a lot of families up in Anchorage, they kind of have it as a rite of passage for their families of when their kids become teenagers, they come down and they hike the Chilkoot together. So it's a wonderful experience. Could we have the next slide? So another treasure that came out of the gold rush is the White Pass and Yukon Route Railroad. It's one of only 2 railroads in Alaska, and it is considered an engineering marvel of the world. And if you ride that train, you're going to see why. It's just an amazing achievement that provides this gorgeous journey up the pass. There's a great quote from Big Mike Heaney. He was the contractor that spearheaded the building of the railroad. And he said, "Give me enough snooze and dynamite and I'll build you a railroad to hell." It was just an amazing construction feat when you consider that the tracks start at sea level and they go up this mountain pass rising over 3,000 feet to the top of the coastal mountains. And this was built back when they didn't have big equipment. They were doing all of this with picks and shovels and just laying track and using horses and carts to pull the tracks. So it's a stunning achievement, and the wonderful thing is it now provides a fantastic journey for our visitors to explore this narrow gauge railway and get up into the coastal mountain range. And they are also going to be operating into Canada's Yukon this year. So in addition to their summit, they have a round trip summit excursion where you can go up and down the pass on the train, or you have the option now to go into Canada, get off at Fraser, British Columbia, and that opens up a whole bunch of possibilities for combination tours, say getting on a bus to go explore further into the Yukon. There's a company that does glacial kayaking right there on a glacial fed lake near the customs station. So just a lot more opportunities available with the train going further into the Yukon this year. And they are also celebrating 125 years of operation in 2023. So they're planning a series of a few special events, both for this year and the next couple of years here in Skagway, at Lake Bennett, and in Carcross, Yukon. So that's something to look forward to. Next slide, please. In other anniversary news, the Days of 98 show is celebrating 100 years of operation, which makes it the longest running musical in the United States. It's right here in Skagway, Alaska. It's a fun little vaudeville style musical that takes place in this funky old theater at the Eagles Hall. The show itself tells the story of the last days of Soapy Smith. He was Skagway's notorious con man who was killed in a shootout on the docks of Skagway. And the theater is over 100 years old that it takes place in, and it's full of delightful historical elements. They have a nice little display in their lobby that showcases some of that history, including when John Wayne came in the 70s and he got up on stage at the Days of 98 show. So there's some fun little extra bits there in their lobby. A bit of history on the show. Like I said, it was started back in 1923 because local folks wanted to raise money to get new uniforms for our hockey team. So they just had a bunch of local folks put together something, and we had small cruise ships that visited Skagway way back then. So the show operated for years with local volunteers until Skagway got busier, and then a professional cast was hired each summer to do the show. Last summer, the lead vocalist had previously been singing opera in New York City, so that gives you an idea of the quality of the cast members that you might enjoy during that show. It really is a great piece of Skagway history on many, many levels. Next slide, please. So now that you've heard about all these great things, how do you experience it for yourself? Well, Skagway is kind of one of those places that you can choose your own adventure. You know, you can fly here, you can sail, or you can drive to Skagway. Skagway is one of very few communities in Southeast Alaska that actually has road access. So you can drive up the Alcan Highway if you're ready for that epic Alaska road trip, and then you take a left onto the Klondike Highway and come down, and that 99 miles of the Klondike Highway is some of the most spectacular driving you will ever experience. So yeah, definitely add it to your road trip. Next slide, please. So you can also sail to Skagway on the Alaska Marine Highway. That's our state ferry system. They offer weekly sailings between Bellingham, Washington, and they come up to Skagway. They also operate regular routes within Southeast Alaska. So if you want to travel the Inside Passage circuit and visit communities kind of on your own pace, the Alaska Marine Highway is a great option for being able to do that. Skagway is also the 18th most popular cruise destination in the world. It really is, cruising is a great option, especially for multi-generational travel. You know, we're seeing more and more families do family reunions on a cruise ship because it provides so many opportunities for people to be together, but then also have options for enjoying the things that is appropriate for their age group. And then they can get back together at dinner time and share their tales of all the adventures they had. So cruises are very popular in our area, but also, again, for the independent travelers, we have regular flights that come to Skagway. So you can take Alaska seaplanes from Juneau, Alaska up to Skagway. They do regular daily flights between the two destinations. And usually if people are thinking about an independent trip, I often recommend sailing one way and flying the other when you're going between Juneau and Skagway, because just the travel between those two destinations is like a tour in itself. As you can see from these photos, you know, you're passing just towering mountain peaks with glaciers hanging off of them, and the water views are stunning. You sometimes will see wildlife as you go along. So just lots of options to really explore this beautiful area. Next slide, please. So once you get to Skagway, what do? Well, you explore. We've already talked about some of our history options, and I have to say there's just so many things to do in this tiny little area. There's local tours that will help you explore our history more. In addition to the wealth of bus tours that are available, the Red Onion Saloon offers walking tours led by their actors, their madams, of the downtown historic district. They call it their Ghosts and Good Time Girls, so it can be a little bit saucy and it's a whole lot of fun. And folks that want to get off on their own or who might be working on a travel budget, we have self-guided walking tours of the historic district actually printed into our 2023 visitor guide. So you can swing into our visitor center, pick up one of those and go off exploring our historic district and learn a little bit about some of the interesting stories about our historic buildings. As you can see, the downtown area looks straight out of an Old West scene. We've got the false front buildings and all the colorful paint colors on them. It is actually a historic district, so anything that is done on those buildings actually has to be approved by a historic commission so that we keep that authentic turn of the century flavor of our downtown area. So yeah, between, if you were to grab our walking tour and do the museums, that would probably fill up a good chunk of your day. And next slide, please. So if you're an art lover, Skagway is going to delight your senses. Our downtown is filled with outdoor artwork. You can see the fellow posing there with the Stampeder statue. Our visitors have a real good time posing with some of our outdoor artwork. It makes for great photo opportunities or selfies for folks or as they wander through our historic district. We also have a vibrant arts community within the Skagway, and a lot of their work is showcased at the local art galleries around town. So if you really want to support local creators, you can look for the Made in Skagway logo. That is specific to Skagway to support the people who live and work here year-round creating. You'll see that sign posted in windows. And then you can also look for the Made in Alaska and the Silver Hand logos to guarantee that your products actually were made in Skagway or in Alaska by Alaska natives. It doesn't mean that everything that is made by Alaska residents, Alaska natives, will have those logos. These are programs that the artist has to apply to be part of. So, some people haven't, unfortunately, taken advantage of that opportunity. But for our visitors, when you see those symbols, you are buying something that is Alaskan. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So one of Skagway's mottos is the gateway to the Klondike, because of the Klondike Gold Rush and all of the back and forth that we have done over the centuries with the Yukon. If you have your passport, you can go up the Klondike Highway and explore all the wonders that are along that route. The Klondike Highway is only about 99 miles long. And we've got bus tours, or there's additional car rentals that have popped up over the last few years. So if you want to do it independently, you have that option as well. And again, in our visitor guide, we have a mile by mile description of what you're going to see along that journey. So you can actually, kind of do your own self-guided tour driving up the highway. But bus tours are also a great option because you have someone who's knowledgeable there. And especially if you have a particular interest, like the plant life around, or you want to know more information about the history of the area, having a tour guide there can be a really valuable resource as you take that journey. But either way you do it, it's just an amazing trip. You can see that lake there. That is actually what that lake looks like. Once the ice thaws off it, that's called Emerald Lake. It's about 75 miles up the road from Skagway. And it's just a unique natural phenomenon that you can experience when you come to our area. So next slide, please. So let's face it, when people think Alaska, they think about wide open spaces, and Skagway has a ton of different ways for you to make the most of your outdoor time. Adrenaline junkies have a great home in Skagway here, because from helicopter rides to the top of a glacier for exploring or dog mushing, to zip lining through the rainforest, ocean rafting through the Taya Inlet, or you can go kayaking on glacier-fed lakes, or even horseback riding out to the ocean. There's just a ton of options for you to get outside and experience nature in a way that you may not have done before once you're in Skagway. So lots of options for exploring. Next slide, please. For people who want something a little more peaceful, or might want to go off exploring on our own, Skagway has several trail systems located just off the downtown area. So you can head off from your ship or your hotel, your camper, what have you, and you can be in the woods in just a few moments, and you'll have that wonderful forest bath experience. And our trails range in difficulty from flat, hard-packed trails that are actually suitable for wheeled devices, for strollers and wheelchairs, or there's hikes to the top of the mountains where you can do all-day adventures and really get a great workout and see some spectacular sights. There's also bike and electric bike rentals that are available in Skagway. So if you want to get off exploring on your own, there's a few different ways that you can do that here. Next slide, please. So this way to end a day of exploring is over a drink or a meal in my mind. And Skagway is home to 2 different breweries and a distillery. Their beverages are all made from some of the best glacially fed water you have ever tasted. And Skagway Spirits makes a gin and a vodka that you can purchase at the local liquor store, or you can head over to their tasting room and enjoy a cocktail they make there. And they do some beautiful craft cocktails over there using local botanicals, like they do a fireweed Cosmo. They do spruce tip gin and tonics or rhubarb Collins, just using the plant life that grows here abundantly and creating some wonderful flavor combinations. So I highly recommend checking those out. They will also make those with non-alcoholic blends, so you can enjoy a non-alcoholic craft cocktail like that as well. Both breweries make a variety of beers, but they both do a spruce tip ale. And yes, it is actually made from spruce trees and it's delicious. I'm not a beer drinker and I actually really enjoy that particular brew. And as I recall, the recipe originated from Captain Cook, so several hundred years ago when scurvy was a problem for sailors. Spruce tip has a lot of vitamin C in it. So by drinking spruce tip ale, it helped them fight scurvy. So, today you can drink a beer and you can know it's good for your health. So, if you're drinking spruce tip ale or a spruce tip gin and tonic, it's good for you. Next slide, please. The Skagway Brewing Company also offers brewery tours, so you can explore their sustainably built building, and it's a pretty amazing space. It has the 2nd largest seating capacity in all of Alaska's restaurants and the largest seating capacity in Southeast Alaska. So there's plenty of room to spread out while you enjoy your meal or a cocktail. And they heat their building with biodiesel that they make off-site using their cooking grease. So, you eat your French fries and you can realize later that oil that it was cooked in is going to be heating the building you're sitting in, enjoying your food. It's just a fascinating process they do there. And another of their sustainable efforts is they grow their greens on site. They've got a aeroponic garden on their top floor where they create their greens there. And one of the byproducts of the brewing process is CO2. So one of the things that they do with that is rather than releasing all of it into the atmosphere, they pump it up into that growing room because CO2 helps promote the plant growth. So they're just doing a whole bunch of sustainable efforts over there. They're pretty cool. Next slide, please. So when to visit? Summer's the busiest time. If access to a variety of tours, restaurants, and shopping opportunities is your goal, mid-May through early September is the best time. If you want to experience the midnight sun, visiting around mid-June summer solstice is going to provide you that unique experience. And if glimpsing the northern lights is on your mind, maybe consider visiting in September or so to have that experience. Even October actually is a great time to visit for that. With cruise ships extending their seasons into April and October, that shoulder season offers different opportunities. One of the common things we hear here at the Visitor Center is people want to have authentic experiences in Alaska, and they want to experience Skagway like the locals do. Well, if that's truly your goal, actually visiting in April or in October is going to provide you that experience. You're not going to have all the tours. You might not have as many restaurant or, attraction options. But if you want to down a little bit, enjoy peaceful streets, that's going to provide you a very unique experience. Some of our seasonal bars and restaurants only get 6 months liquor licenses, so that limits the time that they can operate. But what you are going to find when come in April and October are those year-round businesses that keep our communities going. And so the support that our visitors in April and October provide for those businesses is really a helpful thing to help keep Skagway's year-round communities vibrant and healthy. So, so it's something to consider if that's a type of travel that appeals to you. Next slide, please. You could also think about planning your travels around some of the special events that occur. We have ski races, marathons, music festivals. We've got a writers symposium that happens in May. So if you're wanting to come and stay for a few days and have some events to enjoy, maybe looking at our calendar on skagway.com is going to provide you some ideas for a different kind of travel to enjoy. Next slide, please. So if you have more questions, please get in touch. Yes, that is our building there in the visitor center is in the AB Hall. It's the most photographed building in Alaska, and I think you can see why. It was built in 1899 as a fraternal order, and it has over 8,000 pieces of driftwood on the exterior. The facade is over 100 years old. Some of those pieces actually are original. And some of the services we can provide our visitors are, when you're in town, we keep a book of menus of all of our restaurants here at our visitor center. So you can come in and just look through all the menus and figure out where you want to eat. Helps you save some time when you're getting the hungries. We also have those self-guided walking tour maps of the downtown area, hiking maps, so you can get out and explore on your own, and then those mile-by-mile guides for the Klondike Highway. So if you're wanting to rent a car and have your own guide for that spectacular journey, you can become your own tour guide. So next slide, please. So for more information on Skagway, you can go to our website, skagway.com, and reach us through the usual methods. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all the usual spots as well. So come find us. And thank you, Valerie, for letting us have this chat.
Very welcome. I love how easy your website is to remember. If you can't remember this website, take a note now or a screenshot, but it should be pretty easy to remember. Unlike some where it's not like Explore Skagway or Visit Skagway. You don't have to remember what the word in front is. You just have to remember Skagway.
Just where you want to go.
Exactly. Okay, so let's just jump to you and we'll do some questions. But first of all, again, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for giving me the rundown and sharing with everyone who's watching live and just kind of watching the replay. I have one question that I'm just curious if you have this answer, and then I have a comment based on the answer. What's the percentage breakdown between cruise ship visitors to Skagway and independent visitors to Skagway?
I would say cruise ship passenger visitation is probably about 90% of our visitor traffic. Yeah.
That was my guess. And go ahead.
Yeah, we do get some combination tours. Holland America does a great product where you cruise part of like Southeast Alaska, and then you get on buses and you go in Skagway, you go up the Klondike Highway to Whitehorse in the Yukon, up to Dawson City, and then over to Fairbanks to do an overland Alaska tour. So we do get some bus tour traffic like that, but the majority does come on cruises. The nice thing though about having all that cruise traffic is that it provides so many opportunities for the people who are visiting here. You know, having that the numbers of visitors provides more opportunities for tours, tour products, and then it keeps our stores and restaurants going. So, so you have more variety when you come to Skagway.
Well, what I was going to say is that what I love about Skagway, and your photos especially reminded me as I was there in 2022, is that though so much of the town is oriented toward the cruise passengers, it doesn't feel like a Disneyland fit. It still feels very Alaskan, and it has the history that's still very like evident to visitors. So if you're looking at these photos and wondering if that kind of looks cheesy, or it doesn't look cheesy, it doesn't look fake. It looks like what it looked like when people were arriving on cruise ships 100 years ago, or when prospectors were arriving 125 years ago. It has that sense of history rather than any sort of like manufactured or artificial sense. And that's just such a neat thing that does make Skagway so distinct in the Southeast and all of Alaska. And I think part of the reason that almost every cruise company, I think all of them, everybody goes to Skagway. Skagway is a must visit if you're going to be cruising. So whether you're a cruise visitor, you're on an itinerary, or you're visiting on your own, it just appeals to everyone. That's why it's such a popular port for visitors.
Yeah. Well, our downtown historic district is only about 5 blocks long, and the town itself, or the valley itself, is just over a mile long. So you're in this cozy little nest of a town, and then you've got this opportunity that you can just go to the hillside that's right there, and all of a sudden you can be in the woods and be having an entirely different experience. So just the variety that you can experience while you are within this area, within the municipality of Skagway, and then venturing into Canada, going up that Klondike Highway, means you can pack a lot into, if you're just here for a day, you can pack a lot into that day, or if you decide that you want to stay a few days, there's fabulous opportunities for that as well. There's actually a couple Forest Service cabins that can be rented on recreation.gov that you can access by taking the train up to a couple of the trailheads, so that you can then spend the night at the base of a glacier in a cabin, or in an old caboose by the train tracks there. So there are some really different, unique experiences you can have within Skagway as well. But then, yes, all of our cruise visitors help us keep this vibrant downtown area going with all of our galleries and our shops. And so you can, for the folks who like to go shopping and things, I know that was my mom's favorite thing to do, was just wander through the stores. You can see quite a lot of variety within our little downtown area as well.
Sure. Okay, so here's a question that I have for you. It comes from Amy. For those who are not coming on a cruise, you're kind of getting in this ballpark just a minute ago. How many days do you recommend for planning to stay in Skagway? So let's say someone either comes in via the ferry, they fly in, they drive themselves in some sort of vehicle. What's kind of that sweet spot for how long to plan on their itinerary?
Well, as I said earlier, I just planned on coming up for a summer, and I've been here 30 years and I haven't done it all yet. So, really, you're just going to have to move here. But if you're just going to come for a visit, I would say at least 3 days. It depends on what you want to do. Because Skagway can also be a great base for going over and doing day trips to Haines. There's a fast ferry that runs between the two communities of Skagway and Haines in the summertime. So you can, get a Airbnb or a hotel here in Skagway and go explore there. We've got the neighboring valley of Dyea, where the Chilkoot Trail is located. A lot of people have been renting electric bikes to go tour out that 9-mile road and then go hiking or exploring in the Dyea area. You could take another day and go up into the Yukon and explore up there. So, if you want to stay for a few days, I would say at least 2 to 3 nights, but you could even go a week or a couple weeks and hang out here. During COVID, we actually had some folks who came here and were doing schoolcations, workcations, out of Skagway, because they could go and wander through the downtown or go hiking on the different trails and just have a variety of experiences. So Amy, I'd say, if you want, give me a call at the visitor center and we can talk about some of the different things you might want to explore to plan that. But yeah, maybe get on our website too and look at some of the suggestions Valerie has made for the options of what you can do in Skagway, see what appeals to you, and plan from there.
Yeah. As you said there, you could spend 3 days, you could spend a week, you could spend 30 years. You still won't see it all. You'll still want to come back. And that's the great part about Skagway and Alaska as a whole. It's why we're here today, because we both love exploring and sharing that with people. So, okay, here's another one. Actually, you kind of touched on this one as well just a minute ago. So, day trip ideas, Dyea, Haines, up into the Yukon. Any other ideas you have that are sort of independent ways to explore beyond Skagway?
Well, depending on how you first arrive, like if you were doing a driving trip and came down the Klondike Highway, there's also the Fjord Express does day trips down to Juneau. So if visiting the state capitol was a goal, they do a great little, they have a catamaran, and it only takes 3 hours to get down to Juneau, but because they have a smaller vessel, they can get up towards the shore and you can do a lot more wildlife viewing along that route. And then it's planned, so you've got a few hours in the downtown area, and then you can come back to Skagway. So it's all in all about a 12-hour experience. But yeah, then getting in a vehicle going up that Klondike Highway, the town of Carcross, or the village of Carcross, is about 60 miles from us, and it's on the shores of Lake Bennett there. Has beautiful sandy beaches. A lot of Skagway folks like to go up there on days off because oftentimes the weather is nice and warm up there, and just spend a day on the beach because it's lovely up there. And they've got some nice little shops and restaurants in Carcross. And then you again come back down to Skagway to spend the nights. Oftentimes in Skagway too, in the evenings, you're going to find either local games at some of the different bars, like trivia or different events that they're doing. A lot of live music is happening in the evenings in Skagway. So that in part is why I say it's a great place to have for your base as you're doing those day trips to different locations.
Yeah. And then I know pre-pandemic, there were some flight seeing to Glacier Bay. Is anyone doing that sort of tour at this point?
Yep.
Okay.
Mountain Flying Service. It's a small airplane. Paul does flights out of the Skagway Airport to go flying over the Glacier Bay area, so you can do some flight seeing. And then
Cool.
Temsco Helicopters does regular tours. They have quite a variety of them. Some of them are just flight seeing around the glaciers within our area because we've got the Juneau ice fields just to the south of us. And glaciers just cover basically that whole space between us and Juneau. And so Temsco can help you access those as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. I always advocate for people to get on at least one flight seeing tour during their visit to Alaska, but a lot of people do also want to see Glacier Bay as a national park, and so that's a nice way to do it if you're in the area. Okay, here is one from Sherry. This is sort of if you're tuned in live, I know she was tuned in yesterday for one of the sessions, I kind of rephrased this from a different perspective. So Sherry attended the Alaska Railroad talk, and we were talking about the differences between the Alaska Railroad and the White Pass and Yukon route. And so I was wondering if you could frame it from your perspective, from Skagway's perspective, what's the unique offering on the White Pass if someone's already also planning to ride the Alaska Railroad?
So you're looking at very different territories, very different terrain. A lot of what you're going to see on the Alaska Railroad is a lot of wide open spaces, beautiful scenery. With the White Pass and Yukon Railroad, as I mentioned, it starts at sea level and it climbs up that White Pass up the coastal mountains over 3,000 feet to see the top of the mountains there. And then if you decide you want to take the portion that goes further into Fraser, then you're passing all these beautiful lakes and just a tremendous amount of variety within what you're viewing as you travel along. So we're also in the rainforest, or right at the edge of the rainforest. So, very green spaces, as you saw in that earlier photo. Just the sheer drama, like I said, the White Pass and Yukon Railroad was and continues to be considered an engineering marvel of the world. It is just a unique construction.
Yeah. And I can say, having ridden both, they are very different, but I always find it helps to get an outside and expert opinion chiming in. So thank you. Here's one from Lorna. This is pretty specific. Any suggestions for toddler-friendly activities in Skagway?
Sure. Actually, we are very fortunate that we have a wonderful playground actually right in our downtown area. So just off of 6th Avenue, we've got the Molly Walsh Playground that I have a little sign that says, do you want to know where a playground is, that I show parents rather than saying the words when families come into the visitor center, just in case they can't go to the playground. But yeah, it's a wonderful spot to go and have picnics and explore. There's a nice stream walk that runs through our Shoreline Park area. That's one of those hard packed trails I mentioned. And there's interpretive signs along the way that are actually designed to be interactive for kids. So it'll have information about the flora and fauna. And so there's little levers that kids can lift. The Klondike Gold Rush National Historic Park, their museum on 2nd Avenue also was redesigned a few years ago with the intent of being more interactive and engaging for kids. So that might be another option for your toddler. And then if you're a bike rider, I know that the bike rental places and the bike tours actually offer either pull behind carts for kids, or the seats on the bikes for toddlers to accompany you when you're doing bike tours and just touring around town.
Amazing. That's a really good list. I'm actually really impressed. And I was just thinking, whenever I have a toddler of my own, I might have to make a trip to Skagway just because it sounds like there's so much fun stuff to do. Okay,
Yeah.
let's do
And
one
just
more question. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, and just walking around downtown, because it's a very pedestrian friendly, family friendly place in general. So we try
And
to
there's
be as
the
family friendly as possible.
boardwalks on the sidewalks. Yeah, it's very fun. Okay, so I want to be respectful of your time. I have one more question for you, and this one might be a quick one. Might be, I'm not sure. This is from Marcia asking if there are any thrift shops. We have a very particular style of shopping that she would like to do during her trip.
Well, I love thrift shopping too. You're a gal after my own heart, Marcia. Yes, we actually have a thrift shop that popped open during the pandemic. The local Eagles Auxiliary Clubs turned one of the rooms in the Eagles Club into a secondhand store. And then they've moved now to have their actual own location on, it's just between 5th and 6th Avenue on State Street. So if you come into our visitor center, we can definitely point you out where it is. It is volunteer run, so the hours can vary. But yeah, there is one there, and it's a nonprofit run that started with one of our nonprofit groups. So it's a wonderful addition to our community.
Yeah, and I feel like there'd probably be occasionally really interesting finds as a visitor coming into the area. Some really fascinating stuff I'm sure they get from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's it. That's all I have for questions. Are there any final comments that you'd like to make? Any wisdom about Skagway that you'd like to impart before we wrap everything up?
The one thing I always say one of the things I always say about Skagway is there's something for everyone here. Whether you're have limited mobility and have to work with those considerations, we've got things you can do. If you've got a family with little kids, there's things for you to do. If you want to just have adventure after adventure, there are so many options for you in Skagway. So, feel free to explore through our website and get in touch with us. And like I said, Valerie has some wonderful resources on her websites as well. So make the most of those resources and come explore Skagway.
Yeah, and rest assured that there is no shortage. You will not run out of things to do in Skagway, nor will you ever particularly feel like you're overwhelmed if the cruise ships happen to be in town, which I think there are cruise ships in town almost every day during the summer season. They provide a nice perspective, even if you're not traveling that way. But even if you are and you're just here to learn more about Skagway because you noticed it's on your itinerary, as you can tell, there's plenty to do. Okay, so I will wrap this up here. Thank you again, Wendy, for joining me. And for all of you who are watching live and watching the replay, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Here's what you can do next. If you have any more questions about visiting Skagway, you can go down into the comments to this video, leave those in the comments. I am keeping an eye on them. If there's anything I don't personally know from having visited Skagway, I will reach out to Wendy, who is an expert and call Skagway home, to make sure that we get the answer for you and make sure it's accurate for 2023. If you want additional resources, including the link to Skagway's website, skagway.com, in case you can't remember it, that is in the show description, as well as a quick recap of what we've covered. And then if you like this video, I really would love for you to go click that like button. That is super helpful for helping other travelers find this video through the YouTube algorithm. And if you like this video as an idea of a series of videos answering all your travel questions, just hit subscribe and follow me here, Valerie and Belize, on YouTube. That will help me keep going to create these kinds of videos, as well as other travel videos about Alaska and other Western destinations. And we'll be back soon with more seminars. Thank you again for joining me, Wendy. And thanks again for watching at home.
Thank you, Valerie.